We've mentioned this for a couple of teams and got some really good feedback on the YouTube channel, so we're going to make it a full-on segment. Rod Wave has a song called Heart on Ice. And in that song, he has a specific lyric, and he says, "Heart been broke so many times, I don't know what to believe." And that's where he's at right now, okay? That's where he's at, and that's where some of these teams are at right now. You've had expectations after expectations after expectations, and year in and year out, they don't get met. For Nebraska, you've heard this many times. Hey, this is the year. And I've said that a couple times on this show. This is the year they make a bowl game. I said it the last year that Scott Frost was there. I said it the first year that Matt Rule was there. Hand up, I was wrong, on me. So now you're hearing people say once again, hey, Nebraska, get excited. It's going to be good. And you're like, listen, what JD just sang, out of tune right there, heart's been broken too many times. I don't know if I want to get hurt again. I don't know if I want to have expectations again. Here's why you can have some expectations in 2024 if you're Nebraska and these other teams. If you're Nebraska, you now have a game changer at quarterback. I'm not saying you have a Heisman Trophy winner. I'm not even saying you have an all-conference player in 2024. But with Dylan Raiola, more than likely going to be the guy for you behind center. He does not have to light the world on fire. He's just got to be efficient. He's got to put the ball in the right place and not give it to the other team. Because Nebraska, one-score loss coming in here, one-score loss stat coming in here. Just want to make sure we're all on the same page before we fire it at you. 5 one-score losses. 4 of those one-score losses, the quarterback had more than 2 turnovers. 2 or more turnovers in all of those, or in 4 of those one-score losses. If you are just a little bit better at quarterback, if you're a little bit more efficient at quarterback, how good can you be? Because the defense allowed 18 points a game, and they bring back 79% of that production. The running game was great last year. They ran for 175 yards a game. If you just are a little bit more dangerous throwing the football, if teams just have to think a little bit during the week, that Dylan Raiola might throw it over their head. That's going to make for a better offensive output. That's going to make for a better overall win-loss record, to just be real here. In all 5 of those one-score losses, Nebraska failed to score 20 points. So I'm not telling you buy Big Ten title tickets in Indy. I am saying, though, it's okay to have some expectation here. It's okay to feel a little bit more confident heading into 2024 that you're going to field a better product offensively. Florida. They are 110% a Rod Wave team, and I think it's very interesting the way that the country is perceiving Florida right now. Because all I hear about Florida, whenever they come up on national shows or you hear them mentioned on different national columns or articles, is they suck. They suck. When is Billy Napier going to get fired? And then I look at what they have on this roster, and I'm just telling you, man, something's not adding up here. Because when I look at this roster, I see a quarterback who everybody told me last year was going to suck too, and then he went out and threw for almost 3,000 yards, went 20 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. That doesn't suck. They have a real Tier 1 SEC weapon for when you play the Georgias and when you play the other big boys in your conference in Eugene Wilson. He can be the difference maker for you. He's on your roster, so you got an answer against some of the best defenses in the country. And then defensively, you are light years better from a personnel standpoint. That secondary last year, you played a lot of young bucks. That's not going to be the case this year. You got some more veterans on the back end. You have a lot more proven production on that side of the football. So America and the national narrative is that Florida is going to suck and that Billy Napier is going to get fired. And I understand the schedule is a Hunger Games schedule. Do not get it twisted. But I keep looking at this roster, and I don't see where this narrative is coming from. If you're judging this year based on last year, I think we're looking at it the wrong way, would be what I have to say there about Florida. So I'm not saying Florida's ending up in Atlanta, but I would argue that I think Florida is going to be a little bit more competitive than a lot of folks want to pretend. I think they're going to be a bowl game kind of team, and we'll see what happens from there. Miami, same deal as Nebraska. A lot of people every single season are saying, well, Miami's this, Miami's that. Are they going to win the ACC? Are they going to this? I understand where the hype comes from. And a lot of people say whenever they see a Miami video or a Miami headline, the first thought and the first thing that people say about that during this month of the year is, well, they say this every spring about Miami. They always say this during the offseason about Miami. And there's a couple of reasons to that. One, if you check every single fan base, if you were to check every single message board within the On3 umbrella, which I would encourage you to do so, I promise you, there is message boards that have fans that feel optimistic about their team. Reason for that being, last year is done. Everyone starts out the year undefeated. Everyone starts out the year undefeated. You look at your schedule, look at your roster. You can see a path forward for your team. There's no reason to be pessimistic during the spring. So, one, optimism's at an all-time high during the spring. Second part of this, the reason why it's cranked up the loudest in Coral Gables is because that's a massive fan base. And so everyone's playing music. The difference with Miami is they just got a bigger stereo than everybody else. So you hear a lot more of their music, hear a lot more of their optimism. But when I look at Miami, the reason I'd be optimistic is I think their roster, for the first time in Mario Cristobal's time there, is both talented and proven when it comes to the production side of things. Last year, they were talented, didn't have what you needed at quarterback. You do this year, but you were also really, really young last year. Like Ruben Bain might have been your best defensive player. He's a true freshman. Francis Mauigoa could have very easily been your best offensive player. Probably have a conversation about him and Xavier Restrepo. Francis Mauigoa, true freshman last year. So they have some young talent cycling up in an experience standpoint and a overall just maturity standpoint. And then you drop in a Cam Ward, sprinkle in some portal additions like a Sam Brown who can pop the top on our defense, a Damian Martinez who can get north and south. I really like where the roster's at. I like how they fit into the ACC mix. A lot of question marks across the board there. I'm just saying, if you want to drink the Kool-Aid a little bit more leisurely this spring and this summer in Coral Gables, I don't think that's irresponsible to do. Now, full transparency, we're a pro Kool-Aid kind of show when it comes to the spring, but even with that being said, I think Miami has a roster to really make some noise in 2024, different than they have in past seasons. Texas A&M, the good folks in College Station, man, God bless them. They love their Aggies. That entire metroplex of Bryan College Station, it lives and dies with that football team. They're very tired of missed expectations. Last 2 seasons, they've been told they are a dark horse college football playoff team. You've heard things like, hey, this roster now, if they put it together, they can really, I'll tell you what, man, that quarterback, they can really, and then what ends up happening is they go 5-7 one year, go 7-5 the next year, and so they're like, listen, don't tell us what we're going to be. Don't get our hopes up. And I'm not here to get your hopes up, but I think when you look at this season compared to previous seasons, the issue in previous seasons, from where I'm sitting, was structure. Now you swap out previous year's structure and you bring in Mike Elko's structure, who did more with less, to be real here, with what he did at Duke. There's way better players at Texas A&M than there was at Duke. I don't think that's a secret. Now the path forward is going to be a lot more difficult at Texas A&M and the SEC, but you look at the schedule, it's tough, but it's not like Takova's leather boots tough. All right, like there's no Alabama, there's no Georgia. Pretty much all of your big games you get at home. Notre Dame, it's at Kyle Field. Missouri, at home. LSU, at home. Texas, that one's going to be pandemonium. That's at home. You have a quarterback who I believe is more than capable. I'm just saying, if what was holding you back previously was your way of doing things and that staff and that structure and not being able to maximize the roster, I think a new way of doing things is a cause for optimism. Again, I'm not buying tickets to Atlanta for the SEC championship just yet, but I do think that now more than ever, A&M should have some reason for optimism than previous years. So Nebraska, Florida, Miami, Texas A&M, your heart's been broke so many times you don't know what to believe, but I'm telling you, you can have some optimism. You can believe again. Our Rod Wave teams for 2024. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.